Prasad, thank you so much for talking to us today. You are in the space which is just being talked about the world over. In fact, I was reading uh, just a few days back that there was this American company, I forget the name, which was actually seeing 1,000 people in a year. Now they're seeing 8 to 10,000 people through telemedicine. So telemedicine, which was like a word,
Yeah.
and people were doing, is suddenly an important part of our lives.
Yeah.
Tell us what you are seeing at Mfine, and how would you say the space is shaping up, unfortunately or fortunately, because of the COVID.
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me to this now. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fundamental change, right? Healthcare now, I think it's a largely a permanent change through the world that people have recognized that healthcare has to be delivered using technology. You cannot limit technology, I mean, healthcare delivery only to what people always call as point of care, right? Now there is a hospital always. Now, you have to go to the point of care to be, to get better if you're sick, etc. No matter how far it is, no matter how busy it is, no matter whether you will get your slot or not, right? So it's a very provider centric kind of a thought process with which the infrastructure was there. But it's now bringing that to internet. uh,
Yeah,
is completely shifting it from a 180 degrees, right, towards the consumer. And now, yes, unfortunately, yes, COVID is not a good thing. But on the other hand, it really showed the necessity of and the usefulness of this kind of how to break the barriers to access, how important it is to be able to for a doctor to deliver care without necessarily always having a patient right in front of her or him, and for the patients, how important it is to connect. So it's a largely a permanent change. That's why we see that more and more people are going into transforming. There is a famous picture as well that is going, the meme actually going around in internet, saying that 10 years of digital transformation versus 3 months of digital transformation in hospitals. So this is already more than what has happened in the last 10 years, right?
yeah,
So I think it was coming, it was inevitable that you break the barriers to access to healthcare and make doctors more efficient as well. So world over as well as in India. In India, the problem is even more amplified, right? We have one doctor for 1,800 people. If you really take MD doctors who are really good at their job, etc., so and specialists, it's one doctor for 5,500 or so 6,000 people is, I mean, abysmal, right? I mean, there is really they're really far and few. They're also
yeah.
mostly in urban centers, etc. Right? So um, yeah, that's where the breaking all the barriers via on the other hand, there are 400 million smartphone users, right? Every other service is getting used on smartphones by whether you are in a small town or a big town. It doesn't matter, right? So that people have gotten used to. There are 400 million computers in people's hands, right? So it's high time that this service becomes a consumer internet service in a lot of population across, and that's what is going to happen in India as well. More and more
Yeah.
people will access doctors, specialist doctors especially, through mobile phone, get their care delivered. And I think this is an inevitable change that's definitely accelerated with COVID.
Yeah, and you are seeing an acceleration.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we are now around, since March, our numbers are around 7 to 8x up,
Wow.
just in those few months, right? And that itself shows that one is on the consumer side, 7 to 8x up, etc. But on the other hand, even we had a 200. We work with hospitals, so we create a virtual hospital of sorts, a virtual extension of each of the top hospitals in the country. So unlike doing individual doctors marketplace, we actually create a virtual extension of a hospital like a Fortis or like a Aster or like a Kims Hyderabad or Sparsh, etc. into the cloud, right? It's a virtual hospital for people accessible on their mobile phone. So we had around 250 hospitals on our network in March. Now we have nearly 500.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
also the provider side actually coming in and then accelerating the change really dramatically.
I've always wondered on two things. One is that why haven't we seen scaled telemedicine ventures out of India? Because nothing comes to mind as far as, just reaching the length and breadth of the country and building, like you said, right? Like we have 400 million smartphone users. Then how come we don't have that kind of a scalable ventures till now? And the second thing is, how do you differentiate in a telemedicine startup?
Yeah, so I think you answered the first question in your second question. So I think for many years telemedicine is seen as दो लोगों को लेके आना है, एक डॉक्टर होता है, एक पेशेंट होता है, उसको बात कराना है.
Huh.
It's not, right?
Oh,
That's the reason. If the solution is only limited to that, I think that was the case. What we saw when we started Mfine as well, right? We talked to at least 100 doctors and I think around 400 patients or so before we even registered the company, right? Myself and Ashutosh. We used to do these interviews. We used to take fake appointments and go in and meet the doctor, and then without any problem, ask. Like the problem was really that people saw telemedicine as a connectivity tool,
hmm.
right? That doesn't solve the problem that we have less number of doctors and they have less amount of time in the day, right? It simply doesn't solve, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't solve that problem. Whether the patient is in front of you or over the video, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't work, right? So what we saw was that was the fundamental reason why it didn't work. And secondly, I think too much of probably marketplace or a commerce focus, right? So telemedicine was seen to be like, okay, whoever has time, if you're an MBBS doctor, you have time, come on the app and you'll get some cases, right? Again, that is another mistake, right? So people are not, healthcare is really driven by trust, right? Think about your own personal experiences, etc., families, friends, etc. Would you go to an unknown doctor? Would you go
no.
to a doctor that is somebody assigning you, saying that I have a problem? You may go, but for not a real serious problem of medical
Or
nature.
because of lack of option. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Or you just may go for simpler problems, and
yeah,
even if you don't have an option, the option is 200 kilometers away. You would go there if the problem is serious, right?
yeah,
So what happened is that it's self-fulfilling, right? You get marketplace kind of an approach where kind of there is no trust really in the system, and so you trusted that system only for small ailments. If it's a small ailments, I would not pay for it too much, right? Just because it's on internet, I would not actually pay for it. It's not good enough for my solving my problem. So if most consumers don't pay for it well enough, then there is no really scalable business, right? So that's the real problem. One is the product is not good enough. Products were not good enough to really change the game. That really good doctors can even take like 3 to 4x more patients, right? That's number one. Number two is that without that, you limited yourself to very small number of small kinds of ailments, and which is not a huge business in itself.
yeah, yeah.
The reason, I think that's the insight we got from day one, and that's why we started thinking about it in a little bit different way.
What are you doing there? What are you building, and how are you differentiating? And how should we all watching this bet on Mfine being the disruptor?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, all those adjectives we can use, but I will only say we are off to solving very interesting problems, right? Healthcare is a very interesting space. First of all, the scope is massive. If you address it not as a marketplace or not as a simple video tool development problem, it's pretty massive, right? So yeah, what's Mfine? We went with this approach that we will bring trust into the system. That means that you will find a Fortis cardiologist there. You will find a Kim's or a Sunshine orthopedician there who is famous and who knows his job, or the hospital is known for it. And we can take care of the patients from end to end, not just the primary care, but also secondary or a tertiary care as well through the journey. And all these doctors will come because we'll build a absolutely kick-ass product for doctors, which they have not have seen. so far in India. So that's the two things that we went in and built this 400 hospital network and the product now, right? So what is the product? So if you look at, I'll explain the product via the use cases, right? So there is a 28-year-old sales guy, I think sales executive in a company from Kolkata. He talked to consulted a doctor for his mother, 72-year-old mother,
Hmm.
uh, having some known psychiatric issues.
Hmm.
On the other hand, when the doctor started talking and
Hmm.
did the video call and understood the history, and he also said, few of the other questions like, about the hormonal things, as well as even lastly, he got a doubt in terms of the behavior and the symptoms that they're showing, the behavioral they're showing, and the diagnosis so far that a patient has received not fitting in completely. So he looked at it. He had a video call to understand the gait of the person, etc. So diagnosed that there is a clot in the brain
Oh,
and said that it's a neurological problem. Please do MRI. Please come back. And it is turned out to be so. And they, very, very grateful that,
yeah.
problem has been identified. Our first, when we launched cardiology, our first case was a professor in a college from Jammu and Kashmir. He has a chronic arrhythmia.
Huh.
So he could talk to a AIMS qualified doctor
Hmm.
from Delhi and could actually get benefit from the consultation and long-term medication, etc. So there is a another case of there are tons of things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there are like just enough number of cases like pediatricians looking at looking at infants. One of the very very first case we saw was a eye problem that a 10-day old infant had developed. And the pediatrician was really appreciative that he can actually see the patient, he can do actually diagnosis properly. And things like reading of an X-ray and determining whether there's a pneumonia, reading of a consumer grade image. You can take an image of the skin and then actually automatically classify into what kind of lesion it might be to help the dermatologist, right? So all these innovations that we have done, really helping doctors to be very, very effective. So see, that's the product differentiation. So I can talk about product features like endlessly, but those are the elements we added. We converted mobile not as a connectivity tool, just like anybody would have assumed, like what you alluded to in the beginning. इसमें क्या है, ये तो दोनों लोग बात कर लेंगे phone पे, right?
Yeah.
Mobile now is a examination tool in the hands of the doctor with an Mfine app. So that's
Hmm.
the big difference that we have brought to the table, right? So yeah, very, you probably can tell, very proud of the technology we have built, and it is really solving the problem for the doctor that he or she is able to reliably solve.
Diagnose.
Yeah, very accurately. He or she gets an assistant, very accurate, reliable, scalable assistant, so they can see more patients. The more patients they can see, the economics change really completely.
Yeah.
More patients are able to be served by the expert doctor. At the same time, the economics of earnings out of it, and utilization of the diagnostics and pharmacy and all the other businesses increases for the hospital. So it's a completely self-fulfilling kind of a virtuous cycle we can create where the technology can change the productivity on one end and the entire ecosystem benefit.
We keep on hearing the word machine learning and the data intelligence, but I just feel that the usage in your in your app would be so profound because of the different kind of diagnosis. The intelligence you as a company that will have would be
Absolutely.
really, yeah,
Yeah,
also the
absolutely.
differentiator. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the data is a huge differentiator. So we built the entire diagnosis process using machine learning, of course. Initially, from scanning millions of public domain articles and texts and everything, it's almost like we made a doctor from a machine. And doctors go to college, read books, exactly like the same thing. We created a learning model first, fed it a lot of data. It learned what does it mean that cold happens to nose, like this, very simple things. And a pneumonia has to be identified like this. A certain cough sound corresponds to lower respiratory versus upper respiratory infection. So
Wow.
they've learned all this. At the same time, once the machine is put into use every day, so every day it's getting reinforced. Right? Every
Yeah.
time the doctor is using it, the patient is using it, it's reinforced.
अगर फोर्टिस में जाना है तो उस डॉक्टर से मिलना है, इधर जाना है तो उससे मिलना है. So but there's always, if you go to the hospital, there's such a huge waiting list and line of people wanting to meet. I just wanted to understand from medical fraternity, from doctors' standpoint, how are they embracing to telemedicine, and what is the incentive for them?
Yeah, as I said, if the telemedicine is a tool to which it was actually a tool to connect more patients. They didn't. I mean, it was not working for them, right? So it's actually it's a sink on their time. It used to be, right? Now they are embracing, at least in Mfine case, because they're able to structure and be very more efficient, right?
हाँ.
So like cardiologists, like some cardiologists I talk to in the network, they say that the process is very well defined for me. The logistics of it, the information collection, the the continued longitudinal data of the patient, etc. That collection of it, etc. That takes a lot of time, right? So for them, when they saw Mfine, so one of the cardiologists said that I want like 60% of my outpatient visits to be on Mfine because I'm just so more efficient for me and my patients.
Okay.
Right. So actually, that was actually one of the counterintuitive things that we figured out in the beginning, that जिसके पास time is not the doctor who has time, the doctor who doesn't have time has to come here. Then only, I mean, there is a reason why this doctor is sought after, right? Then only we really can get the expertise given to more and more people. So we really focused on that aspect, right? So we know how a gastroenterology case diagnosis process happens. We have the data. We know the longitudinal data of the patient. We can do correlations about it. We can do preliminary differential diagnosis. The doctor is appreciating all those things.
हाँ.
The incentive is simply that they see more patients very clearly, of course. On the other hand, there are more, I mean, that's basic. On top of it, some of these top doctors are really top doctors because they're very, very top of their game, right? Very early adopters of technology. They
Yeah.
understand, what are the next steps of, 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And they see the potential with that, right? So they, couple of doctors are publishing papers with Mfine data of efficacy of
Wow.
treatments, etc. Right? So this is a completely new direction for a lot of these doctors. Digital was always a promise, but I can confidently say that it is in small measures getting now fulfilled.
It would be very interesting if at some point you could come out with a kind of a paper or something which talks about how doctors, like you were saying, it's very interesting, and it also makes sense. Like doctors who are busy are actually finding through your platform able to effectively leverage their own time and see more patients. That would be so powerful. Yeah, to get that. Yeah.
So I think both sides we are in the process of writing papers. Usually in medicine and in healthcare, you need to be writing papers in peer-reviewed journals, etc. Have a very thoroughness about it. We are going about it in that way that the credibility is there. So in the
Yeah.
end, we want to be a healthcare company with deep credibility and with a lot of technology, progress, right? So we are in the making of those papers as well. One is on the doctor side, even on the patient side, right? So very simple thing. The most appreciated yet very simple feature we have is that once you do the consultation, it's all digital. All data is digital on Mfine. There are no images or things like this. Everything you upload, even if you upload a lab report as an image, we'll convert into digital automatically. So we actually give prescription reminders that you need to take your medicine like this, or your mom's medicine time has come up, right? So people just light up when we never imagined that this is so important, but it actually changes the medication adherence. It changes the outcomes. Doctors love it, so that they don't have to keep on telling that you have to take this medication, the course has to be finished, there's a reason for it. So those kind of things also we are seeing that really can influence the outcomes at the patient's level. Those are the couple of papers also we're preparing on that.
I wanted to ask you, are you seeing an uptake on mental health, people coming to see psychologists, psychiatrists?
Yeah, we have seen that. Yeah, we now, I think, earlier we used to do around, 300-400 a day, maybe up to 500 a day, 500 a month kind of cases. Now we are seeing, I think, around 3,000 or so.
Wow.
So it is increased. In the early days of, from April, around May, etc., I checked it specifically because I was interested in knowing what is the lockdown doing to people, or what's the this kind of pandemic environment doing to people. A lot of cases where it's literally getting on the nerves of the people, that anxiousness and heightened anxiousness. If even your neighbors are, you heard some news or something like this, somebody is affected, what will affect you? For expecting mother, your anxiousness is going up, and you are you travel for work a lot. You work. You work a lot in sales functions and other functions, etc. You're stuck at home, kind of more or less not able to manage that balance.
Yeah.
These kind of profiles that we have seen, it's constantly increasing. Although the peak is a little bit reduced now, it's good for the people that they're able to handle it now a little bit more. That's what I read out of it. But definitely, yes, there was a heightened, consultations on psychiatry and psychotherapy.
Yeah. And what is the biggest treatment for which people come to you, to the platform?
Yeah, so we have all kinds of 30 odd specialties. So a lot of around 35% are actually super specialties like cardiology,
Okay.
all that stuff.
Wow.
So we get 80% of our cases are non-GP cases, right? So all specialist cases, etc. So gynecology is one of the top three. GP for more chronic conditions is also one of the top. The diabetes is a big, nearly 35 to 36% is chronic conditions like diabetes and thyroid, etc., etc. So that's how it.
Prasad, the other question I had is that you said you have virtual hospitals. So do you tie up, or do you do a rev share with the hospitals, or so you don't have individual doctors?
No. So we have few top-notch doctors directly with Mfine, but very, very selected few of them, less than 5%, but largely 95% is actually hospitals, yes.
So then the revenue split would be between the hospitals and the doctors, but you deal with the hospitals.
Yeah, so correct. So we are now an extra share kind of, but on the other hand, volumes are higher, so they're okay with that.
Yeah. And because you are a digital platform, are you able to charge lesser from the patients as compared to they walking into the hospital?
Actually not. We think that it is not any less in terms of the experience and the care. It's the same doctor. It's the same expertise. It is exactly the same hospital. And if you need more, like examination or intervention, etc., you continue the journey with the same hospital. So we do charge the same as you visit a hospital. The question, the way you asked, is different. That's the situation. But do I believe that the costs can come down with technology in the long run? That's yes.
Yeah.
I think we can bring costs down without affecting the provider's side of earning, etc. Right. So actually, there is an interesting quote. One of the top doctors of Bangalore, orthopedician. I'm not sure whether I have the permission to use his name, so I won't use his name. But he looked at the system, and he practices on Mfine, top orthopedician from Bangalore. He said that I see 50 patients and I charge 500 rupees. Looks like you can enable me to see 500 patients. So I can actually charge much less to my patients. So that's so he's a very, very senior, revered doctor. Again, one of those visionary doctors. I think that's possible, going forward.
So do you have plans to go to smaller towns, to go to villages? Because telemedicine, your startup can go across the
Yeah.
country, right?
So yes, absolutely. I mean, there are already people using it from almost like unexpected places like remote villages, etc. Thanks to the internet penetration, smartphone penetration, etc. But consciously, we want to get into more and more. I look at it this way that the point of care I talked about it, right? So when I say point of care, people always have one form factor in their mind, right? This huge hospital, either multi-storied or big enough hospital as brick and mortar, etc. Right? What we have done as a first step is we made the point of care this,
Go on.
right? Now there may be other forms of point of care, right? We are thinking about a kiosk, ATM sized kiosk, where there is a lot of assisted consultations can happen and care delivery can happen, and things like this. Those can be deployed at scale much larger uh,
Yeah.
across the country, with the government, without government, in any ways. I think private or private public partnership, etc. So that is something definitely we have in mind to take it up next year.
If you have to say, I'm fine, this is the big dream. Of course, the dreams keep on changing and evolving, but at least in the next 12 to 18 months, this is where we want to be, and this is what we want to achieve. What would that be?
Um, I think I think there is a future that is getting built. I think we want
Yeah.
to build most of it, right? Whether we do it or not, the future is getting built. That is digital. You would make healthcare access as a any other consumer internet service reach nooks and corners of this country. No doctor should. I mean, every doctor should be available on the platform, and a patient should be able to reach any doctor that they would want. I think any specialty, and they should be able to manage their health and get better when they're sick, and in a lot of ways also prevent sickness and complications, etc. By being so attentive to the health. Once it becomes your in part of your personal device, you are more attentive to your health, right? So there is a lot
Yeah.
of attention that can be done. So I think definitely reaching few hundred million customers over the healthcare is a lot more universal need. So I can imagine that few hundred million customers is possible in India and over the next 3-4 years. That's really the dream, and becoming that platform where a lot of respect from doctors first of all come, and a lot of trust from patients comes, right? So I think that's the important thing. I think I realized one very humbling and at the same time very interesting experience is that this is not an area where you, as a technologist, dream up something and then build out something and everybody will fall in line. This has to be built with the experts, and we are not the full experts. The doctors are, right? So even in our team, there are 3 doctors who are product managers, right?
Oh,
Yeah, they're completely converted into product managers. Yeah, of course, in business development also there are there, but this is an extreme thing that we have taken it to, right? We are the half experts, and the other half actually has to be filled by some of these visionary doctors, some of these people who can actually appreciate and see more systems thinking, etc., etc. Right? So I think that's why respect from doctors is an important part of the vision that I have. That next 3-4 years, we want to be the choice of the platform for the doctors, and that way also patients get benefited, that they get the best of the doctors on the platform.
yeah. So, Prasad, we are talking for money matters. So I want to ask you my question, which is, what has money meant to you personally in your life? What role?
Yeah, it's a kind of philosophical kind of thing. At all stages of, if I look back, it's always been it meant freedom
Yeah.
to do what I want, right? It's pretty much that. So it's not that. It becomes an end in itself, and there is no limit to what one can earn. But I always had, I mean, even before Mintra, I had a startup. So again, that was a failed startup. But the point was that I at every point in time I looked at money and saying that, okay, yeah, this is good enough. Now I can do whatever I want. So I mean, it helps me just live the way I want to live, and at heart, as an kind of by education, by upbringing, etc., or just the mental makeup is problem solving and things like this. Right? I want to solve a lot of problems, and that whatever money I can get can give me that freedom to do that.